This is Robert.
And I'm Evelyn.
And this is Talking About It bonus episode Mount Doom.
Yes. So, we mentioned...
So Evelyn gets to talk about all her rock nerd stuff now.
Yes. So what I was going to say is we've mentioned it a couple times in the podcast. The most recent class I took was historical geology. I took regular geology easily 10 years ago, so I don't remember much of it. But historical geology was really interesting, and we were joking about me talking about the geology of Mount Doom, but I decided to actually do some reading into it, and it was kind of fun to look into it.
All right, so before you go on with that, so one of the few problems I have with the series...
Oh, the Rings of Power?
Yeah.
I will be mentioning
No. One of the few problems I have with Lord of the Rings...
Oh, okay.
Okay, is how Tolkien is either oblivious or decides to do away with actual reality.
In what way?
In this whole, when they're near the edge of the volcano.
Where they're not burning up.
Yeah, I mean, because you see scientists walking out there, and they're.
Hobbits are very resilient.
It doesn't matter.
I know.
1,000 degrees is 1,000 degrees.
There is this documentary that we got extra credit to watch where it's basically about these two volcano scientists, and they eventually die studying volcanoes from heat exhaustion and everything, which...
Yep.
Yeah, we were all like, do we really have to watch it? Because that just sounds depressing. But yeah,
But to be fair, he's not the only one that does this.
Right.
I mean the whole idea of Anakin Skywalker, final real fight,
and Mustafar with Obi-Wan.
Obi-Wan.
Both of them should have charred up.
Yeah. Now,
let
me go to my nerd place first.
Okay, because I was going to go to my nerd place.
So, but with Star Wars, you can argue that the Force is protecting them.
I had two arguments. That was one of them.
Especially when we see later on in Episode 7, 8, and 9 of General Leia.
Right, is able to
jump from one ship to another ship, go through space, and that's because she's protecting herself.
She just got ejected into space and then was able to get herself back in. But yeah. She was able to use the Force for that, and that was not one of my problems with that movie. But anyway, the Force protecting them, but also Mustafar was a controlled planet because it was for production of stuff. So I also felt that there was unknown technology that we just weren't seeing that allowed for humanoid
If they were really worried
habitation.
about human safety,
they would have had handrails. I know.
No. They wouldn't even been able to get down there. There have been so many safeguards to keep them from getting there.
Again, they didn't have handrails on the Death Star.
So, but I think that's because they didn't expect any living type creature to come near it.
But that still indicates that they would think that robotic intelligent life or unintelligent or programmed life would go down there. And so they still needed a way for it to be habited. That brings me back from that rabbit hole to Mount Doom, where Sauron and all of his magical abilities, to me, I would think that he uses his magic to make, because we know that it's they go through that path to the cracks where he forged the rings. So I would be able to believe that it's one of those things where he used magic to, again, make it less hostile for him, again, thinking no one else would get there.
making it less hospitable because he's not human.
But he's not immortal either.
Yes, he is.
No, he's not.
He's one of the first.
I thought he was a... Okay, this is confusing me. I thought he was the heir to the evil immortal.
He was one of the first created. Anyway.
Okay.
I mean,
I thought he was like in that like.
He created this place.
No, he didn't. That I'm gonna get into that right now. Okay. Okay. Let's get into this because you are incorrect. So let's go.
I'm incorrect.
So.
Once in 3 years.
Floats him and jets him. Okay, so a lot of where I'm getting this is from several different places. I'm just gonna like cite my sources real fast. That a lot of the information that I have right now is from further works that Christopher Tolkien edited and released. As well as Karen Lee Wayne Fonstad, where she was the author of Atlas of Middle-earth. And I want to read this, honestly. It sounds fascinating because she actually found geographical inconsistencies between The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, and Christopher Tolkien himself acknowledges her and credits her for being able to find those issues. He thought it was very interesting that she was able to like really get that information, and it's really cool. So she is a she is like a geologist, and so and obviously a nerd, so she just really was getting into this. So we know that in the history, it was Melkor who created Mount Doom in the First Age. And it is believed the name Mordor may have been given to the surroundings prior to Sauron settling there from its eruptions, is what that is. And then when he chose to have Mordor as his dwelling place in the Second Age, like the mountain that was previously called Orodruin was like the main reason, because he wanted to like make the mountain, like the volcano, the heart of his work, and like he wanted to infuse, like, because the mountain was already like in this dark land and made from this dark person, that it would be the best place for his sorcery.
Right, but the mountain doesn't even erupt until Sauron attacks Gondor.
Right, yes, yeah. The mountain never actually erupts. However, just because a volcano doesn't erupt doesn't mean there's not magma flowing all around.
True.
Yeah, so there's still cracks and fissures that he made a path to, that we talked about in the last episode, that got there. But you're correct. It did not get the name of Mount Doom until it erupted the first time. And then just as like a side note, it laid dormant for a while, until kind of like the reawakening of Sauron. So that being said, Karen Wine Fonstad, who published, she actually wrote several articles prior to writing the history of Middle-earth, she wrote prior articles in her book, The Atlas of Middle-earth, prior to the history of Middle-earth coming out. So prior to the history of Middle-earth, which Tolkien had written and Christopher was editing. Yeah. So he was in the middle of editing it when she posed her theory that, because even though it was created by a god, it's still, science has to do something. So she saw it as a tectonic uplift. Now,
my note says stratovolcano.
I'm getting there.
Okay.
The original volcano was created by a tectonic uplift. And what that means is that there are two continental plates that kind of squish into each other, and the less dense one will go over the more dense one, and that creates like these mountain volcano ranges. And where Mount Doom is located is part of that. And so it was originally small, but then over the time it became a stratovolcano, which means that layers of lava and ash just built and built and built on top of each other to make it this huge, imposing
thing. But interesting enough, though, even though it's an old mountain volcano, it's pretty short. I mean,
right, yeah, it's only, hold on, I actually have
4,500 feet.
Yes, it's 4,500 feet, which is relatively short. However, it's still extremely imposing for this particular area of Middle Earth where it's on like a plain. So
that's a big ass plane.
It is. Oh, just got the joke. Okay. So anyway, prior to the History of Middle Earth being published, her theory was that it was the result of a tectonic uplift. And again, these words mean nothing to me. I just wrote them down because I'm assuming this is found in other places. So please fill in gaps if you know it. So she posed that it was a tectonic uplift that drained the Sea of Helcar and the Belgier, which was caused by the cataclysms of the War of Wrath. Do you have any context for any of that, or is that just something we're going to have to read later?
Yeah, we'll just have to read later.
Okay. However, a few years later, when the 12th volume of the History of Middle Earth, the portion, The Peoples of Middle Earth, it is stated that the mountain was created by Melkor in the First Age. Yep. So it was before the draining of the inland Sea of Helcar. But it still could easily be like a tectonic uplift. Is basically what that means. So, was that all of my notes? I think that was all of my notes on it.
Okay.
Yeah, because like the original name for Ordruin, it just means fire mountain, which to me makes sense if it's a stratovolcano that even if it doesn't erupt, it still has lava flow and ash flow that builds it up and up and up.
Right. So
causing igneous rock.
Well, what's interesting, so in the Rings of Power.
Oh yeah, I did have notes about that. Yeah.
Yeah, in the Rings of Power, we see the dormant volcano cracking open when Sauron hits it with the hilt of his sword.
Yeah, so I mean, I know it happens. I haven't seen this episode yet because I'm very behind on all my shows. And this just shows you how behind I am. But yeah, the Rings of Power, to me, it's not canon because they take liberties with it. But
it's approved by the estate.
I know it's approved by the estate, but the eruption to me does not make sense in that it's not supposed to erupt until the attack of Gondor. Okay. And in the Rings of Power, it just,
spit it out.
It just, like, they don't mention it at all about Gondor. So, yeah. It's a little bit, like, too many liberties, I guess, in that particular case.
Right.
So.
Yeah, so we have all kinds of things going on.
Yeah, so with Rings of Power, I'm not mad about it.
Talk about mega world building.
Exactly. Like, I personally enjoy Rings of Power. I have not read the supplementary materials. In fact, I haven't finished the main material yet. Thus the podcast. But as a very casual, only slightly informed fan, I am enjoying it. How are you, a overly informed fan, in finding it?
I'm finding it interesting too, because I'm going back and looking at sources that I haven't looked at in a long time, and I'm being reminded of a lot of stuff.
Okay. So I know that we're doing The Hobbit next. Would we want to do something looking at some of that material first, or are we just going to throw me into the deep end with the Silmarillion?
Well,
we'll figure it out.
We'll
give us options, people, because I am excited for The Hobbit.
I think we should do The Hobbit next, and then I think we should do the Silmarillion after that, because that's kind of...
Is it also like that kind of like info dump that helps with everything else, kind of, I guess?
Well, I think it's...
But
I personally read it after having read the other 4 books.
Okay.
And so...
But
there's a whole lot of aha moments when you do it that way.
Gotcha. Though I also... I know we're just kind of like planning while we're recording, but why not? We'll make the bonus episode a little peek into how we plan things. So we're definitely doing... So basically, after we're done with this season, or this... We're going to watch the movie with my friend Colin as our guest. And then we're going to watch the animated one after the live action one.
Right.
Because that's a 2-parter, right?
Yeah.
That's the 2-parter. So that's why we didn't watch the first part, because we were concerned that there might have been spoilers.
Right, yeah.
And plus it'll just be nice to kind of... We'll just binge it. We'll just do one after another one day.
Yeah, because it's the Lord of the Rings, and then...
the Return of the King. And they just, like, put stuff...
I'm sorry, it's Fellowship of the Ring, and then...
And then Return of the King. They just kind of split the 2 towers between the 2 movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, I again, it's been years since I've seen it, so I really don't remember it. So I'm excited to watch that again. And then I'm excited to read The Hobbit. And then for The Hobbit, I suggest we do the animated movie first, because I love that movie. And then
I think
we'll get into that trilogy.
I think we need to read the whole book Hobbit before we get into the trilogy movies.
Oh, no, that's what I mean. Read the whole book. Read the whole book, The Hobbit.
Because there is so much added crap in the movies.
Yeah, I know.
There's no reason to make it 2 movies, much less 3.
2 movies, I could understand. 3, too much. But we'll discuss that as it happens. Because, again, I just know that supposedly there was extra stuff, like, from other sources, supposedly. I don't know any information about that, so that's going to be on you.
Well, the whole...
But I want to watch the animated movie before we watch the live action. Is what I mean after we read it.
In the movie, in the Hobbit movies, the whole thing with the hot dwarfs, and the and the love.
Oh, we're gonna have to talk about that, aren't we?
And the love triangle.
Well, the love triangle, yeah,
with somebody who didn't even exist in the books.
Yeah, but we are gonna have to talk about the sexy dwarf meme, aren't we?
Yep.
Spoiler, I made a viral meme, and the actors that played the dwarves found it, and yeah, that was a wild year. Anyway.
That's when Evelyn started calling herself Tumblr
famous. Tumblr famous. I jokingly started calling myself Tumblr famous because of those memes went viral. But again, I never thought the actors would ever see them, and whew. Anyway, so
She started getting starry-eyed just thinking about the sexy dwarfs.
No, it's the embarrassment that I was making the memes as a joke, as a reaction to the sexy dwarves. And I never intended for the actresses. Anyway, we'll get into that later. Much later. But yeah, so I guess, I do, after we do The Hobbit, though, before we do the Silmarillion, I kind of want to read, like, one of those parody books that we've talked about.
None of them are any good.
I thought you said, like, the one that's, like, the pamphlet was kind of funny.
No.
Or interesting.
No, there was one called Board of the Ring.
Yeah, I think that's what you mentioned.
And that's, I mean, it doesn't hold up. I mean, it was written in the 70s. And it just doesn't hold up. In my opinion.
Or maybe we could do that as a bonus episode instead.
Yeah, in my opinion, the best shoot-off satire of the Lord of the Rings. VeggieTales.
We do have to discuss the VeggieTales, because the thing about VeggieTales is I think we still have both versions.
I think we do too.
Because how did you even get the test screen?
Because I was a VeggieTale reviewer for 2 years.
Okay, yeah. All I know is we got the review film, like the original cut, and then we were curious, so we got the actual released one, and there were some minor differences, and it just kind of like, I think that's what piqued my interest in film almost, like back, I must have been like, what, 8 or 9 when that came out, and I just like, the fact that it's like, oh, movies aren't like the final cut automatically, like that kind of like, on it, like in a weird way, VeggieTales kind of piqued my interest in film.
Okay, so putting on my film nerd hat, there are 5 versions of Blade Runner.
I feel like I've heard that before.
Yeah. So in my class, when anyone ever uses Blade Runner as one of their movies that they're talking about, either when we're talking about new Hollywood or if we're talking about movies where good doesn't win, I always want the student to tell me which version did you watch.
Interesting.
Because some of the versions are just like neo-noir with, with narration going in the background. Sometimes it's not.
I don't know which version I watched, honestly. It's been so long.
I've watched them all, so they all come together for me.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's VeggieTales, Lord of the Beans.
Yes. Yeah, I remember. VeggieTales, Lord of the Beans. And I just remember thinking you were so cool because you got the desk copy. I just remember thinking
I got the test copy of The Pirates Who Don't Do Anything.
Oh, did you?
Not pirates.
The pirates who can't, who don't do, it's the pirates that don't do anything.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, that one. I didn't realize you got that one too. I just remember the Lord of the Beans, like, I remember telling, like, all my friends at school, it's like, yeah, my dad's so cool, he got this, like, advanced copy, and they're like, what's VeggieTales?
Alright, we are really going down the rabbit hole, folks.
This is honestly how our planning conversations go.
Alrighty, so I've been Robert once again.
And I've been Evelyn with a B+ in historical geology.
And you've been listening to something that we're talking about.
Mostly Tolkien. I mean, it's been mostly Tolkien. A little bit of Star Wars.
This is mostly Tolkien about it.